Okay, hello everyone. We're back and starting our second session on apologetics. And this week I am honored to have my friend and guest, Scott Garcia.
Hello.
Hey, Scott.
Great to be here.
And we go back a long ways.
I remember when you adopted your son.
Yes.
And he's how old now?
23 now.
Yeah.
And he's a matter of fact, he was going to help us run the equipment here today, but he got had to go and do some work. So
yeah. I was going to try to bring one of my sons, and they had to go into work too. And
that's what happens when they grow up.
Right? Exactly. Yeah.
So anyway, Scott, man, for those of you who don't know, this guy is the video genius of the century. I'm telling you. I remember when I'll never forget, you did a scene that mimicked the bullet scene in the Matrix.
Bullet time, yeah. With the high school students, we had a video class at Valley High School. Gosh, going back 1999, 2000, going back 20 years ago. And I told them we wanted to try to do that, and we had a little green screen. I told everybody, hey, find a camera. Find any camera, and we had like all VHS cameras and VHS-C cameras back in the day, and we ended up with like 13 cameras, and we made this little arc, and then shot video, amazing. And then we did our own bullet time in high school.
I'll never forget that. I thought, wow, that's genius, and ever since then, the stuff you've produced has been really phenomenal.
Thank you.
And anyway, and you're still active in that, aren't you?
Yeah, still doing that, and still making. In fact, last night was up all night with my son, because my sons are now doing it. Mm-hmm. My older son is going to college for film school at Biola, and my younger son actually got hired at his high school. He's a senior this year, and Gabriel got hired to edit videos that they were making for all coronavirus and stuff like that to get all the content out to their students. They hired him, so he actually works at his high school.
That's awesome.
And so he was making a video last night, so we were doing that. So it kind of runs in the family.
It does. Yeah, it does. And anyway, Scott has been, and the reason I've got Scott here today is not to talk about video, but Scott has, over the years, and I didn't know this until just recently, but has been active in apologetics. And you actually have a Facebook show.
I have a Facebook show called A Valid Answer. It's with a friend of mine. We went to high school together. In high school, he was a devout Catholic, and through things happening in his life, he became an atheist. And so he's been an atheist for 15 years now. And we connected back again through Facebook and started having discussions and joked around, said, hey, we should do a podcast, a pastor and an atheist doing a podcast together. So, and the idea is a valid answer. It's based off of, I don't know is a valid answer. You don't have to try to make something up. If you don't know, just say, I don't know. That's a valid answer.
Amen.
And we allow each other to do that. But yeah, every Sunday, if you don't mind me, cheap plug here, but every Sunday night, 5:00, Valid Answer on Facebook. Just find us there. But yeah, pastor and an atheist talk about politics, religion, philosophy, everything that goes on. And we've been doing that for a couple of years now, every week. So
wow,
it's a lot of fun. The purpose of it is it's so easy to just say on the other side of the screen, that person's an idiot, or that person's evil, or they're all wrong, and those people are all this. But when you're sitting face to face with your friend of 30 years, I can't say, well, you're an idiot.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Well, you're just dumb and you're evil. Well, no, they just have a difference of opinion that's worth talking about and trying to find out what our common ground is, and not just like, well, those people are dumb.
Yeah,
and so that's
the thing that's so disgusting to me about social media is that it's easy to sit here on my computer and just throw spears at somebody that's across the country that I don't even know, and that's just there's I don't know.
Sometimes apologetics can have a tendency to lean that way.
It can,
because you start getting. This is what's right, and this is the way, and you got to be careful that there's a human being on the other side.
And also, one of the things that I've found with apologetics is that, as I shared in the first episode, there is something that as you gain knowledge, Paul says knowledge puffs up. And as you gain knowledge about a subject and you get proficient at sharing things, you can, start to fillet people with your wisdom, so-called, And that does absolutely no good whatsoever.
I mean, it makes you feel good for that moment. Ha! I got him.
Yeah.
And then you realize, oh wait.
Yeah, that
maybe I got him with the argument, but I also just got him personally.
Yeah.
You know, and
you just
now they're not going to listen to you.
They won't listen to you again.
Yeah.
No, absolutely. And that's one of the things in the first session that we brought up is that it's necessary for us to be able to share our faith and to be able to have an answer for every man, but to do it, as Paul said, do it
handling
in a
accurately
humble
the word
way,
of God.
in a humble way, and reverent way. What's he say? To esteem each other above ourselves.
Yep.
Just like Christ did, and so that's the attitude we're supposed to have. And so when we get into some of these subjects, and again, as I said last week, some of these things can get you, if you're not prepared, you can get kind of heated, because somebody's
defensive.
putting you on defense.
Yeah.
And then you don't know what to say, and then you kind of get a little angry. And I've seen arguments escalate through that, and it just gets ridiculous, and nobody proves anything. And
when you get defensive and you don't know what to say, you want to defend yourself in some way. So that's usually when it becomes a personal attack back, because you don't have the information. You want to have the information, but you don't want to wield the information as a weapon.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah. The old thing of hitting somebody over the head with a Bible. You don't want to do that. And so anyway, last week I talked about what apologetics was. And
I'm sorry.
No. You are. Oh, yeah. Okay, I'm a little slow. And what apologetics is, being able to make a defense for your faith and being able to do so in a way that doesn't put people on the defense, hopefully, and does it in a loving way that people understand that you're genuinely concerned. The first session I called experiential apologetics. I kind of Googled it. I haven't found that anyplace, so I think I came up with a unique
you coined
one.
it.
I coined it, yeah. You can quote me on that. And the experience that you have in your life as a Christian is very valid. That's probably the most effective thing, believe it or not, that you can have, is by people seeing your life and seeing what God has done, seeing how God has become very real in your life.
And if I can add to that, why it's so important to not get down the throat of somebody is that when you get defensive and go to name calling and go to the argumentative stuff, that you're losing that experiential. That what was your phrase? The
experiential apologetics.
Yes, you are now. You're losing that argument by trying to win this argument. You're making yourself a worse example of what a Christian should be.
Yes.
And so that's why it's really important because that is the most valuable one. That's the one because when you're there with your friend, when you are in when you're in a relationship and talking about these things civilly, how you respond to that person, how you love that person, and how you treat them as Christ would treat them is more powerful than anything you could say.
Yes. It's not about how much you know.
Yeah.
It's about how much you love.
Yep.
So today we're going to look at the second form of apologetics that I want to discuss, and that's philosophical apologetics. And specifically today, we're going to look at a question that, if you haven't run into it yet, you will.
Yep.
And it's probably the biggest argument that either atheists or agnostics have against Christianity, and that is, if God is perfectly good, why does he allow evil? And so that's going to be today's subject. I'm going to go through basically real quick here. I want to run through the different kind of apologetics we're going to be looking at in this class. First of all, the experiential. We've already done that. What has God done in your life? Philosophical apologetics. Now, this is going to be ethical and a little bit of physical, moral arguments for God's existence. Yep. And then evidentialist apologetics is basically the forensic scientific approach to showing, for instance, the validity of the Bible and historicity of the Bible and so forth.
Every day they're digging up, in the Middle East, they're digging up a new reference that's found in the Bible.
That's right. So we're going to look at that. So anyway, we're going to get into some conversation here. So get some coffee. I don't have coffee. I have sparkling water here. So we're going to get started. And first of all, we want to define a couple of worldviews. And these are views, if you don't know these, they have fancy names, but you should know this because this is what your kids are being taught in school. Mm-hmm. And the first one is methodological naturalism, the view that only physical testing of things in the natural realm is plausible. So if it can't be put in a test tube and tested, then it's not plausible. Therefore, God can't be put in a test tube and tested, so he's not plausible. And there's just it opens up the door for the academic society to begin to say certain things have to be a certain way because we've tested this, and it seems to be right. Therefore, we have a theory about this, and this is what you should believe. Mm-hmm.
And it's the first crack of the door, opening the door to implanting doubt in your children's minds and saying what your parents have told you or what you've learned in church and stuff like that. We're going to start bringing doubt in, and not that there's anything specifically wrong with doubt. Doubt causes us to research, and doubt causes us to do what we're doing right now, which is learn more so that we know what we know and that we can express that. But like you said, in the realm of school and stuff like that, if you don't have what we're talking about today of how to deal with these and how to talk about these with your kids or with people you know, they're only going to see the one side, which is doubt. So it's not necessarily bad that there's doubt because doubt causes us to research and to find more. But if you don't know what you don't know and you don't go to find out, then doubt can creep in and doubt can steal away your faith or the faith of your children if you're not careful.
This is interesting because this brings up there are people what is it called faith deconstruction that I've heard lately, and it's people who you see this particularly in some of the celebrity, I guess you'd say, people that have claimed to walk with Christ and have been Christians for many years, and all of a sudden doubts are coming into their mind, and they're coming up against some of these arguments for the first time. And they don't know how to answer them. Therefore, they just, back away and gradually
they don't know that there's answers.
Away. They don't know that there's
answers. They don't
answers.
know that. You want to learn this because there are answers to these things. If you don't know there's answers, as soon as the doubt creeps in and you don't know that there's an answer, you start to question your faith.
Yeah.
And that can be very dangerous. There are answers, and that's what we want to talk about today.
Absolutely. And if you don't know the answer, if you're a believer, pray. Yep. What does the word say? It says, if any lack wisdom, let him ask of God who's willing to give to all men liberally. And just believe that he will do that. And he will take you on a procedure. He may not drop it into your head instantly, but he will take you through a process of learning. And all you have to do is be willing. The second view, and it's hard to distinguish between these two, that's metaphysical naturalism. It's philosophical. Man, I can't talk. View
you need a drink?
I need a drink of the universe in which nothing can exist other than matter. So when it gets to the things that require consciousness or thought, you can't test those things. And so in some areas where these things come up, they can use that as a way of pushing away belief in that thing because it can't be tested.
Can't be tested. And again, I always like to add this caveat to them because it can't be tested with current tools, with current technology. You don't know that. I mean, somebody, how many we're analyzing brain waves and doing, all this kind of stuff that couldn't have been done 100 years ago. So, I mean, you don't know what can or cannot be tested in the future, but they're just saying if we can't, it's more, there's two ways of looking at this, and you kind of come down to for as far as atheism is, and that is there's making a positive statement, not necessarily meaning that it's, yes, positive, hooray, I agree, but making this is a statement that I am positive and sure about. Like the difference between saying, I don't see any evidence of God or there is no God. Those are two different statements. Mm-hmm. And this one feels like it's one of those of saying, because there is no existence of these things. And it's making really kind of a faith-based statement. It is, and not necessarily a even though they're talking about, science and measuring and all that kind of stuff, it's making a faith-based statement of these things don't exist. And it's making a positive, absolute statement about something that is not knowable.
That is so true. And that just kind of brings us segue right into here. Everything that we do is based on faith. I don't care if you're an atheist.
Exactly.
You have a lot of faith, and actually, I think you have a lot more faith than I do, mm-hmm. because given the evidences and so forth, if you really, really, really examine them, there is so much that is out there mm-hmm. to prove our faith and to show us that yes, in fact, God is very, very real. And again, I don't want to get. We can get too hung up, and I think people do. They get too hung up on, let me see, this proof here and this mm-hmm. proof here and this proof here. It is a relationship with Christ,
yes.
and wisdom begins with fear of the Lord. Mm-hmm. And so once there is that, he begins to open up. When I came to the point in my life where I said, God, I desperately need you. I have been a horrible sinner. I mm-hmm. need you. I need you. I need you. All of a sudden, it wasn't like somebody, started teaching me a bunch of stuff. God opened my understanding in a lot of things that I had never seen before. I'd sit down and read the Bible before I was a Christian, and it wouldn't make any sense to me. It was just a bunch of words. After that point, I'd read the Bible and the light went on.
Yeah.
And I went, whoa, I understand what this means. And so, anyway, so we basically are going to look at things as, when we go through this class, as we're going to examine evidences. Yep. Today we're going to look at some evidences in a philosophical realm, arguments there. And then
how to measure up logically.
Yeah. And then we're going to look at the best explanation. You're going to look at eventually a reasonable answer must be reached by faith.
Yep.
It's still going to take a leap of faith. One of my favorite scenes in a movie, and I'm sure you're very familiar with this, it's in one of the Indiana Jones movies. Yeah. And it's where he stepped, and I think it's Temple of Doom, where he steps out of the crevasse.
One. Yeah, it's the Holy Grail one. Yeah, Crusade, Last Crusade.
Okay.
Yeah.
See, I knew you'd know.
The movie.
And anyway, I love this scene because it's a leap of faith. He has to step out,
put that foot up
over this thing, and he knows that it's got to be there, but he's willing to just risk it all and just step out. And that's what it is when you follow Christ. Mm-hmm. You aren't risking anything really, but you are giving yourself.
Well, and what most people don't recognize is how many things every day we do by faith. And I'm not going to talk about, well, I have faith that this chair is not going to fall. I mean, there's reasonable understanding, but also like just especially when it comes to relationships, that trust in a relationship is a faith statement. It's a statement that I have faith in this person. Yes, they've proved themselves in the past, but I also have faith in this person. This person is trustworthy. Mm-hmm. That there is evidence involved. I'm not going to just look at a stranger and say I'm going to assume that person is trustworthy. There is some evidence that you gather, and there is those things where I learn from this. I learn that this person, I can trust this person. But then you don't go every single day and say, now today, let me measure all the stuff that you're doing, and let me make sure that I can trust you today. No, let me measure. Show me the evidence. We don't do that in relationships with each other. We don't do that. Right. I mean, imagine how long would you be married if every day you woke up and said, "Okay, now prove to me that you love me. Prove to me that you didn't cheat on me. Prove to me this. Show me the evidence of everything." Like, we don't do our relationships. We don't live our lives based on having to have all the evidence every single time and measure it every single time. We don't, as human beings, don't live that way. We're relational. And most of the time people try to look at God and say, I'm going to measure God scientifically. And it's like, well, no, this is a relationship. How would you treat another person? How would you, God wants to have a relationship with you. And if you just keep coming and say, show me the proof, show me the proof, show me the proof, you'll miss out on what it is to have a relationship with God, and realizing that experiential apologetics is about that. It's living that relationship with God and the people around you, and discovering, just like you discovered that you loved that person, that the person you love right now, or even a familial relationship, that I know I love this person. Why? Because of the evidence, because you measured it, because you did a blood test and looked for the love DNA in them, and make sure, did you do like a chemical analysis between your two pheromones and make sure that those, no, it's just something that we relate to, we know, right, and it's there. And yeah, so what's the best explanation? We're going to come to a reasonable answer that's based on faith.
Yeah, it is. And then we're just going to hit on this. So this is more for the Christians. We were discussing before we started recording this, there is some flaws in this argument if you bring this to an atheist. But if
don't lean on this argument.
Don't lean on it.
Yeah.
Right. Right. But Pasquale's wager is
Pascal.
Is somebody Pascal. It's spelled so similar,
right?
Just a U out.
But
of
we
there.
we know a Pasquale. So.
I know Pasquale really well. So
if you're watching
Pascal,
this, hey,
Pascal, he probably is. Pascal's wager is an argument in philosophy that presented in the 17th century by a French philosopher, theologian, mathematician, physicist, Blaise Pascal, and he's basically saying. This is how one of two ways that you're going to bet your life, and if God exists and you believe in God, you have a wonderful life, and when you die, you've gained rewards. Mm-hmm. If you say there is no God, you live this life, and when you die, there's infinite loss. Mm-hmm. So. That's just something to, if somebody, I know there are people, there are very, very, very intelligent atheists that argue on the philosophical level. These guys are much smarter than I am probably, but,
I'm not going to comment on that.
Yeah. They can think of a million different excuses and ways to attack your arguments, and it doesn't negate the truth of what I just said. That stands true, and they would say that there's doesn't explain why you can't have other gods.
Basically what it is, Pascal's wager is saying, here's this bet, and if you bet and you win, but if you bet and you lose, you haven't really lost very much. If I believe, if there is a God and I bet that there is a God, and it turns out, hey, I die and find out there is a God, I've won. If there is a God and I bet that there isn't a God, and I die and I find out that I was wrong, I've lost everything. And that's the idea of the wager, but it is based only on one game, one card. It's like blackjack. It's based on, I'm betting on the one next card. And atheists will come back and say, but it's not blackjack, it's roulette, where there's an infinite number of numbers, and you're going to place your bet on 17, but what if you placed your bet on 17, but the answer is actually 47? Well, then you did lose something, and they say, well, how do I know which God to bet on? That's going to be their thing of saying, I don't know which God to bet on, and that's they try to shut down Pascal's wager by saying that.
Right.
But Pascal's wager isn't the beginning of the argument. It's the end.
Yes.
It's the end of the argument. It's here's my experience, like you talked about last week. Here's what I have lived. Here's what I know. You know me. We're in a relationship. I'm talking to you as a friend. You've seen these things happen in my life. You've seen me go through this. Mm-hmm. Now, what have you got to lose to try what I'm offering?
Right.
And that's you bring in Pascal's wager at the end, not at the beginning, because it's like there's already, you're building a proof for this, and then you're saying it's worthy of a bet. It's worthy to try it.
Yep, it is. And at some point, I'm going to share my dad's testimony of how he came to the Lord, which is experiential again, and it's miraculous. It's one of the most dramatic experiences I've ever heard of as far as conversion, and it happened during World War II.
Wow!
And so, anyway, at some point I'll explain that, but his experience, coupled with that argument right there, for instance, what have you got to lose? Anyway, let's move on.
Yeah.
Problem of evil. If God is perfectly good, why is there evil?
Why does he allow evil, or why is there, yeah.
Yeah. Why is it there? So basically we have to, first of all, what is evil? Evil is,
what is darkness?
the opposite of what God is,
Yeah.
right?
How do you even know what light is if you don't know what darkness is?
And also, as we're saying this, if you're an atheist and you're saying that, okay, there's evil, then what defines good?
Exactly. That's even bigger one for atheists is what how do you as an atheist define what's good? Because here's what happens. I've faced this question. Why does God allow evil? Because somebody's saying, the person where there was a shooting was happening and God helped me to escape by having this door open, and I've had a person say, why didn't God just stop the person from shooting? Why didn't God just step in and stop the person from shooting? And that's obviously evil. Why didn't God stop that? And I asked him, I said, so you want God to intervene and physically stop when evil happens? Yeah. I go, so if you're about to lie to somebody, you want God to shut your mouth? Well, do you want God to step in and stop you from everything, or you just want him to stop him from the things you think are evil?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. And that's where it comes down to. If you think that's evil, then you must say that, then you must define what's good. And if you want God to stop evil, then you're asking God to stop everything that he sees as evil, not what you see as evil. And all of a sudden that changes the whole picture, because you're like, well, no, I don't, and you get to stammering. And it's like, that's what you're asking.
It's more relativism.
Yeah.
And whatever I think is right, you can go to different societies and get different definitions of good and evil all over the place. But there's one standard, and that's where it comes back to God.
Yeah.
So anyway, there's evil is, in the Christian realm, and our Christian definition is anything that goes against the things of God. Pretty basic, pretty simple, right? And so where did evil come from? I've had people say to me, why did God create evil? Well, he didn't create evil. Matter of fact, in Genesis, in the first chapter of Genesis, it says that everything created was good. Mm-hmm. So it was good. He started out with everything great. So where did evil come from?
You have to be able to choose. You cannot, there is no goodness, there is no virtue unless there is choice. Because robots are not evil.
Yes.
Computer programs are not evil.
Unless you watch iRobot.
But again, it's saying the only way that can happen is if that's a big jump, is to say that now there's artificial intelligence but what makes it
made a choice.
It made a choice.
Yes.
That's where it comes down to.
Yes.
So I'm not saying that robots can't, who knows? Who knows the future that maybe computers will be smart enough to where robots will be conscious and they can make choices. But what makes something evil is the ability to choose. And right now I can write, I don't know how to write, but somebody can write a program on your computer, on my iPad, whatever. They can type up a program that can do things that we as humans might call evil. Mm-hmm. But the program doesn't know it's evil. The program is just ones and zeros, and it's just working out a program. That's all it does, because it has no choice. So as human beings, God created us. I like to create things. I like to draw, but also I'm into Legos. And those of you who are big fans of Legos, that I know that it's not called Legos. You're supposed to. Anyway, I call it Legos. It doesn't matter.
What's it supposed to be called?
Well, it's Lego bricks. Like Lego, you don't pluralize Lego. You're not playing with Legos. You play with Lego bricks. Or the Lego system.
I'm now enlightened.
Isn't that crazy? Yeah. So, but I'm not that far into it. I still just call them Legos, even though I know that grammatically that people go and jump all over me. But I like to create stuff. I like to build Legos. I like to build like with the gears, the Technic gears and stuff like that. And I want to figure out something that's going to be able to move, grab this. I love that type of stuff with the gearing and stuff like that. And what's the ultimate creation? The ultimate creation would be to build something that can then operate itself. To build something, the ultimate creation is to then build something that can then go reproduce itself. and live on its own. And we kind of live that. We kind of see that with our children. We raise our children, stuff like that. And then, your child's 23, mine's 19 and about to be 20. And I'm seeing them, they got to go live their own lives. But God creating us and saying the ultimate creation is something that can then choose. I can make this great computer, I can make this great program, I can make this great robot, but it really isn't alive. It really isn't its own thing. And there is no love. There is no love back and forth. I can't say, I love this Lego creation. There's no, and really in a way like that, it can't love me back. But to make something that has the capability of love means that now has to have the capability to choose not to love you.
Absolutely.
And that's what gives value to the love. I mean, if your spouse or your child, if they didn't have the choice to love you, then what value is the love that they bring?
Yeah.
There has to be the ability to reject in order for there to be value and acceptance.
Absolutely. And so that brings us to this next point. Evil is a corruption of good and arises from the misuse of the will.
Yep.
So if you have if your wife, if you got to ask her every day, do you love me? Or, kind of prod her, and I think kind of what we're getting at earlier, or get some sort of, you're living under this insecurity that she loves you. There's something,
prove to me.
Yeah, there's something wrong there, right? Mm-hmm. And so, but it's great when she comes up to me at the end of the day and gives me a kiss and say, I love you. That is her responding to me. And that's the relationship that God created us for. And when he set Adam and Eve in the Garden of Eden, everything was good.
Yep.
Everything was set out just right.
Everything he created was good. Even human beings that had the potential to choose bad, they were still created good.
Yes. And so then that brings us to this point. If God intervenes in all circumstances, then free will goes away.
Yep.
And it's kind of like you were just saying a little earlier.
Sorry, I was jumping ahead.
That's okay. That's all right. If he were to, let's go to the Garden of Eden. Mm-hmm. There's a big one, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Why did
original sin?
Okay. Why didn't he intervene and jump in front of Eve just as she's supposed to grab the fruit and say, "Don't do it"?
Well, it's the same thing. Like, what's the difference between a mom and a dad? Right? Mom and dad are sitting on the couch, and the little 2-year-old is walking towards an outlet with a fork, and the mom's like, and the dad's like, "Nope, let him learn." I mean, it's not necessarily. That's kind of
that's a little extreme.
That's a little extreme. But at the same, but the thing is, if you just keep controlling, that person is not living their life.
That's right.
They're not living their life. They're living your life.
That's right.
If you just step in every single time and just control, there's no love in control.
No. And there's as a parent, that's such a good point, because as a parent we can be too controlling for our kids and not let them make choices on their own. And it's when they make a choice and it's wrong and it's bad, as long as it's not detrimental to them, spiritually or physically, and bad physically, then it's something that they can learn from, because that's exactly how we go through life.
But even on that example, I was joking with you. No, let them learn. It's kind of a funny joke, but there's not a time when you're trying to trick your children into, no, I want them to learn the hard way. I mean, that's kind of bad parenting. You're always trying to give the information. You're always trying to say, here's the best way. That's why God left the Bible for us. That's why God leaves these things. That's why God has pastors and teachers to help guide us, and people to say, hey, here's what happened. Here's all these ways. You don't have to go through that. You don't have to stick the fork into the outlet and get shocked to know that I'm going to tell you, hey, if you do that, it's going to hurt. And if you choose to believe me, you can avoid that pain. But if I just keep trying to stop you from everything, then you will never learn. You can learn from information, but if I just give the information and don't let you experience life, I'm just controlling you, and you're not learning. You're not fully learning everything.
And that's the free will.
Yep.
Now, as man goes on, obviously, They ate the fruit,
Yep.
got kicked out of the garden and everything. And things changed for them because now at this point, they have been exposed to evil.
Yep.
And it has become an inherent part of who they are. And unfortunately, that gets passed from generation to generation to generation. So we're all born into that. It's part of our DNA. And so we talk now about the depravity of man.
Yeah.
And that we are all inherently evil. And so think about the people, you look at, for instance, one example, and by the way, I'm getting some of this from an apologist who I've sort of kind of following that's just amazing, Clay Jones, and I highly recommend his books. But one of the things that he brings up is that he began to look into genocides throughout the world when approaching this subject. And it kind of got him, because he got into the severest forms of depravity of man. And he began to look at these. And these are things that you kind of look at on a picture and then you turn away and walk away and forget about it, right? These are real people that went through real horrific things.
See, you and I have both been to Israel.
Yes.
And went through the Holocaust Museum there. And I remember hearing about this, but standing in there and no matter where, there was no place to look away. Right. Wherever you looked this was real.
A
this
pile
was real.
of shoes
this was real.
or
and
whatever.
It hit
yes.
hard. Yeah.
Yes, it does. And one of the things that, he brought up in discussing this is the people around, you think of it just being the Nazis that were in the concentration camps that were doing this. Well, this permeated into the society. It was the people around the camps that also had some sort of part in it. It was the people that make Bayer aspirin that you take today that made the gas that killed the people in the ovens there. Yeah. And so it was a horrible thing, but people, were part of that. So isn't that inhuman? And this is his point. No, this is what humans do.
It is human. We call it inhumane, but it's like, well, no, it's kind of ingrained in us. It's what we do.
And then, so here's some more stuff. 78 million killed. We think of, the 12 million, 6 million Jews and 6 million Poles and everybody else that was killed by the Nazis. There are 78 million killed in China, genocides through the years, either through Japanese or otherwise, and just horrific. He goes into some of the details that you don't even want to hear about some of that took place.
The horrors that man can inflict on other men.
Oh yeah, mankind. People being pulled apart.
Yeah,
I mean, good grief! It's just it's hard to even believe people can do that. And so again, isn't that inhuman? No, it's what humans do.
Yeah.
32 million killed in the USSR. Stalin did his thing, and there's all kinds of people killed in the USSR. And again, isn't that inhuman? That's what people do. It's become a very big part of the fabric of mankind. 1.7 million, and then 1.6 million in North Korea.
Yep.
And then 60 million unborn children in the United States as of 2019. And the thing about it is, and this is one of the tactics that is used by these regimes, they classify whoever it is that they want to get rid of as inhuman. Yeah. For instance, in Rwanda, the two tribes that Tutsis and I think it was them that got wiped out pretty much. And they were classified as not being human. That's how they got the other people to believe that they were doing the right thing. See, you can convince a society if you do it right. It's like Hitler, of you're doing the right thing by getting rid of this race or these people. And that's what happened with them.
Mm-hmm.
It's also what's happened in the United States by saying this isn't really a human yet.
Yeah.
And so, therefore, we can go ahead and kill
whatever.
this.
And it's really funny, not funny, but it's really ironic in that how much they want to protect animals that aren't human.
Yes. Whales.
Yeah, it's
seals.
like, but here's this miniature human being. It's like, but it's not human yet.
Right.
Yeah.
And now it's gotten to the point where it's actually born almost, or if not already born. Anyway.
Yeah.
So you get the point.
It's not an abortion discussion.
Yeah. So humans are inherently bad. I think we see that. There's not any good things that we do per se. I mean, there are good acts that we perform, but we all avoid the performance of evil acts only as it is convenient to our well-being. And this is one of the things that Dr. Clay Jones brought up, is that if, let's say a person meets another, like a guy meets a girl at work. Now, he's already married, she's already married, but they don't, they think all the thoughts in their head, they fantasize all these things in their head, but they don't do it. Why? Because it would be inconvenient to them. They might get caught, they might get a disease, there's all these things that go through their head, and so they don't do that. But once those things get moved out of the way, then that can happen.
It allows you to measure. It allows you to measure the level of inconvenience you're willing to tolerate in your life. And that makes it relative. When those things can shift and those things can move, that's why you get to these points, that you can then shift these things that, no, this is not the right way. But now it's convenient. I can move those things to a place of convenience, and now I can do this. And that's why relativism is so dangerous.
Yeah.
Because it allows you to shift those things. So, because here's the thing, we keep saying, did God create evil? Who created evil? And I just thought of this while we're sitting here. I mean, it's a little, I don't want to build a philosophy around this, but I think humans created evil.
By our free will.
By our free will. Like we created evil. Human beings created evil. Why? Because what is the root of all evilness? When you get down to it, evil exists because of selfishness.
Selfishness, absolutely.
It is myself, and right here it's saying we avoid performance of evil acts only as is convenient to our well-being.
Let's go back to the original sin.
Yeah.
All right. So human beings created because of selfishness. What did Satan promise to Eve?
Knowledge.
Said you'll be like God.
Yeah.
You'll be just like him.
You'll be just like him.
I want that. I want that. I want to be like that, even regardless of what he told me to do, not to do.
I want
this.
I want what
that.
I don't have.
Yes.
I want some. And here's the thing. You don't even know if you have it or not. I want what that person tells me I'm supposed to have. That could be somebody, but it's that idea of I want. And anybody who has ever raised a 2-year-old can know that's not taught to human beings.
That's right.
Selfishness is not a learned experience. It's not a learned value. It's not something you are taught. You are born selfish, and selfishness is what leads to evil. I mean, I'm not trying to quote Yoda here or anything like that, but fearless, all that kind of stuff. But selfishness is the root cause of evil.
Yes, and we are all inherently evil. I know some people will disagree with that, and that's fine. You can. But I think that we see that mankind, if you study mankind over the years, you see that is the case. So aren't there good people? People who live their lives doing good things.
Define good.
Define good? Well, I think we could generally say, somebody does something good to somebody, There was a campaign that actually started here in Bakersfield. What was that? It was kind of the pass it on type of a thing.
Pay it forward?
Pay it forward, yeah. And, just doing something good for somebody else.
Random acts of kindness?
Random acts of kindness.
That's right.
That's what it was, yes. And that's great, but again, that is an act that's not necessarily who that person is, because I think we see at the root of everything, we're all selfish.
Yeah.
We all have that free will, and we make
well, again,
those
there are people who
choices.
have personalities. I don't know if you've ever taken the Enneagram personality test and stuff like that. We are all hardwired in certain ways. Like we have personalities that are not necessarily learned traits. Like it's just each person is born with the personalities. I happen to be what they call an Enneagram 1, which is the moral perfectionist. That for whatever reason, my brain just always wants to know what is the way to do it, what's the best way to do it, what are the rules. I want to know what those are. But that is a personality quirk that's not necessarily part of, as a baby, I didn't have that personality quirk.
Right.
That's something that gets developed. And as a baby, I was just as selfish as everything else. But some people have different personalities that don't lead them in that direction. And some people have personalities that do lead them in that direction, but it doesn't nullify the idea that you're still inherently selfish, that there is still the self, even though there are some people who have a personality that reaches out to people more, just like an introvert or an extrovert. Somebody might that person over there is evil. Why? Because they never smile or talk to anybody. Like that just might be an introvert where the extrovert's always, and you don't know they're a psychopath, but not all extroverts are psychopaths. I'm not saying that, but it's just the idea that there are personalities that come into play, but just because someone has a personality that does things that are good doesn't negate the fact or nullify the fact that we as human beings are inherently selfish and evil. That is, like I said, you can see that it's not a learned trait. Selfishness is something that is inside of all of us.
It's like the gangbanger that stops at a red light.
Yeah.
That's a good thing to stop at a red light, And is it something that inherently does because he wants to keep the law? No, he doesn't want to get hit by an 18-wheeler. And other than that, he'd go right on through that, right? And probably a lot of other people would too. So there's a difference between acts of kindness and being good.
Yep.
And there is the Bible says no one's good, not anybody,
not anyone,
not one.
The heart of man is infinitely the heart of man is deceitful beyond all imagination.
Yeah, exactly. So the problem isn't why does God allow evil to exist? The problem is why does God allow humans to exist?
Ooh.
We're the root of the evil. We're the problem.
Yeah.
And so it's a situation that if you honestly look at it, you've got to question, the validity of that argument, as an argument against God.
Mm-hmm. Well, again, I look at it, and this is one of the reasons why, and I'm not trying to get political in anything that's going on right
Please
now.
don't.
No. But this is why. Why does God allow humans? That's a singular word that's encompassing billions of individuals.
Yeah.
And the reason, I don't know if we're going to, jump into that or if I'm jumping ahead on what you have on your slides or anything like that, but as soon as you group people into a group, then you can define things for them. Then you can say whether or not this is good or this is bad. If human beings are bad, why doesn't God just get rid of them? Because he has hope for you as an individual.
Right.
He has hope for you. He doesn't see humanity as a group of people. He sees you. And if we would all do that, if we would see people every time, that group over there is this, or God loves this group of people, or this group of people matters, and all. As soon as you group people, you're starting to create the problem to say, well, then that group is this, that group is this, that group is this. And if all human beings are in this group that's evil, then why does God let human beings exist? He lets human beings exist because he created you as an individual. You still have choice.
Yes.
You can still choose God. Any of the billions of human beings that exist and have ever existed, all of them had the choice to choose God, had the choice to do what's right. And God wants to give individuals that choice. If you just say this group is bad, then you can justify all kinds of actions that you can do to a group.
That is the love of God. It's the kindness of God that leads us to repentance,
Mm-hmm.
the Bible says in James. It's that kindness that leads us to repentance. It's his kindness that does not wipe us out.
Mm-hmm.
And that love is extended to you. It's extended to me. And it's our choice, our free will, to either accept that or to reject that. And he longs for us. Mm-hmm. He longs for us to accept that. And that's the exciting thing. So the love of God and free will. Free will, does it continue in heaven?
That is a good one that I have never actually thought about. Like, obviously, if you look at the story of the devil and the demons, apparently they had free will to turn away from God. When we go to heaven, do we still have free will? I would assume that we do, but maybe because of that experience, we are, even though the Bible says when we ask Jesus into our heart, we are a new creation. We are something new. And I love how Pastor Ron, I'll never forget how Pastor Ron, the blue ball of clay and the red ball of clay, they come together. It's purple. You cannot separate it anymore. And that's always who, but even that purple ball of clay here on earth is still imperfect. Mm-hmm. The imperfectness of our humanity will be taken away when we're in heaven. We're not going to be corrupted by the imperfectness of our humanity. But what does it mean to have choice in heaven? That's a really good question I never really considered.
So God has allowed choice in the past. Obviously, if you look at what the Bible says about Satan before he was cast from heaven, he was the covering cherub. He was like the number 2 guy up there or whatever, A lot of people say he was a worship leader kind of a guy. I don't know. You can draw that conclusion out of various things. But regardless of that, he had a choice. And there were angels that a third of which that were in heaven followed him. They had a choice. So God creates, it would seem, his creation to have choice. I would not want to have I'm trying to think, there's probably been a film made about it, you probably would know, of something where you made all of my friends, and all my friends had to, be my friend and love me. Yeah. And that wouldn't be any kind of a thing at all. And so anyway, I think that I think we will, in fact, have choice. Mm-hmm. And this is the eternal glory of heaven, where the right choices are made to stay away from sin and have a relationship with our Creator, I think is key. Down here on earth, and this was, I love this example that Clay used. If I have a pin, am I going to jam that in my eye? No, right?
If you're a masochist, I guess.
Yeah. I know better.
Yeah.
I mean, I've learned enough on this earth to know better than to do that or to chop my hand off or do some stupid thing. This, as we are here on earth, we are in the process of learning. James talks about the trials that we go through that shape us and mold us and make us into better Christians. And those things all are training us for our life to be eternal in heaven with God. And as we have that experience, I heard also that, some people say, well, I wouldn't want to be in heaven because you just sit out on a cloud, and play a harp or whatever, Yeah, that wouldn't be much fun either. But God created us to rule and to reign, it says. Mm-hmm. And so it's not like, it's going to be some boring thing up there. Mm-hmm. We are created to be with Him and to be in fellowship with the God and the Creator of the universe. Last week I put up a picture of the universe taken of from the Hubble telescope, mm-hmm. and the vastness and the what's out there, man, it just fascinates me. I would love to know all that stuff, it just fascinates me. And yet the Bible says that we will know even as we are known. Our minds will be opened up mm-hmm. at that point, and in fellowship with God in such a way. Would you really want to use your free will at that point to go back to where we are now? I don't think so.
And even compared, because they say, well, then Satan was with him and knew that stuff, and he still chose. But it doesn't describe Satan and the angels as being created in the likeness of God as we were created. That we are actually a different kind of creation.
Amen.
Yes. So you can look at that and go, well, they have this, but we are actually, the Bible defines it. You look at animals. We're a different kind of creation than animals. God created us in his image. And so we are a different kind of creation. So there's no telling until we go and come back. I don't know until we get there, but what that means when we're in heaven, that we're a different kind of creation, that, is it possible to have free will and yet never choose wrong? I guess that's what is it possible? Just like somebody says, is God strong enough that he can build a rock that he cannot move?
Yeah.
And I go, yes. And then he'll move it. Because God is impossible. You can't trap God with impossible questions because God is impossible.
Right.
You can't. He's like, well, that doesn't make any sense. I know. Who knows? Maybe it doesn't make any sense, but we could be creatures that have free will that never choose wrong because of the way that he created us, and then being in that perfect setting. That doesn't make sense, Scott. You know what? Welcome.
Yeah.
You're trying to make sense with your mind that's this big and trying to understand the vastness of God with this.
And what does he say? The wisdom of man is foolishness to God.
Yes, as smart as we think we are. Well, really, we're going to look at God and say, you don't make sense. And God's going to sit us down like Job and say, where were you when I laid the foundation? Who tells the oceans where to go and where to stop? Do you?
Right.
It's like, the arrogance of mankind to say, if I can't understand it, therefore it does not exist.
Yeah, that's irrelevant.
Yeah.
So we're going to wrap up here. Okay. I don't even know how long we've been going. It's probably way too long.
Almost 45 minutes, I think.
Okay. Yeah, that's way too long. C.S. Lewis has this, I love this quote. I believe in Christianity as I believe that the sun has risen, not only because I see it, but because by it, I see everything else. It's the knowledge that God has placed in me as a Christian, since I've been a Christian, that I see everything else. It makes sense. And so all of these arguments that we run up against and that you will run up against, you may not have all the answers. I sure don't. And it's something that we can work on and study. But you know what? I know because of what God's done in my life, I see everything else.
Yep. And
it all makes sense. I'm going to throw up a couple of references here for you guys that I think are really important. I think one of the best works I've ever seen on this subject of evil was through Dr. Clay Jones. You can also watch his stuff on YouTube. He's got a lot of stuff on YouTube, and just fascinating. The book that we're going to be using for a lot of this later on when we get into the evidential things will be The Evidence That Demands a Verdict.
Yeah.
And that's a classic. And back when you were teaching your photography or video class.
Yep.
I think I was teaching.
You were a Bible teacher.
I was a Bible teacher teaching apologetics at the high school. So anyway,
in that day,
long time ago,
we had Josh Vietti as our students. We had Vince,
Josh was in the class.
Josh, all the people you normally see sitting at this table, half of them were in our classes, and we were their teachers.
So, and then the last one is The Problem of Pain by C.S. Lewis. Classic writer, phenomenal philosopher, and also just a phenomenal writer. He's written a lot of stuff that our kids watch.
Yeah, you probably know him because of the narrative stuff, the Narnia, what is it, the fiction stuff that he's
Chronicles
of Narnia. But yeah, there's a lot of nonfiction stuff that he wrote as well.
One of the classics, Mere Christianity, which you just have to sit down and, oh man, that's so deep. That's such a deep book. And anyway, I don't want to prolong this, but thank you guys for watching.
Thank you.
Hopefully you made it through all of this. And next time we're going to probably do another philosophical question as well. And that, for instance, why does God allow all the killing that took place in the Bible to happen?
No problem with violence in the Bible.
Violence in the Bible. And so we'll be, because these are things that you will be asked.
Yes.
You will be asked this more than any archaeological proofs or anything
Yep.
like that. But you do need to know that the Bible is solid.
Yeah.
And we're going to go over that eventually too. So anyway, thanks guys.
Thank you.
And we will see you next time.